Welcome back to another episode of The Inside. Very excited today to have Jonathan Pelosi join me. He's the Chief Revenue Officer of Avo. Pretty interesting company, just learned about it actually, but it makes total sense when you think about what's going on in the marketplace right now. And when it comes to the access control industry, it's beyond now being sort of a trend, and it's a thing that our industry is have to work with in a good way. And I say that, and it's an opportunity for us to actually show the value beyond the locking and unlocking that we've been talking about. So we'll dive into that. But Jonathan, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me, Lee. Excited to be here with Group 337.
Thank you. Of course. So if you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself and the company, and then we'll jump into sort of the value creation and ways you interact with access control.
Certainly. So as mentioned, I'm Jonathan, and really I help oversee all of our partnerships at Avo. And Avo started about 4 years ago in Israel, is where we were headquartered. And it was born out of the idea that getting access, appropriately referenced for this podcast, to stuff was either hard or expensive. So there's a lot of services out there that allow people to order online. The problem is they are prohibitively expensive, or they weren't fast enough. So Avo was born in Israel, specifically actually to serve commercial properties at first, offices and their employees. So if an employee needed a bottle of wine, an avocado, a box of granola bars, and they don't want to take the time during working hours to leave the office to go grab those things, Avo would bring it straight to them, to their office, and it'd be ready for them when they were done, and they could pick it up before they headed home. Fast forward, we came to the US about a year and a half ago, and we similarly started with commercial. Interestingly, as a result of COVID, commercial traffic slowed to a very, very small drip. And we since shifted a lot of our focus to serve multifamily, large residential properties. And now, similar to the way we serve commercial, we will basically become an amenity for residential buildings that allows their residents access to a white labeled online store. Think of it as the online superstore where they can order anything as mentioned, from a pet food to a bottle of wine to an avocado. What makes us unique is we will deliver it the same day, and we'll do that at no cost at all to the resident. There's no secret delivery fee, there's no tip, there's no subscription fee, and there's no minimum order size. So as it relates to access for residents to get whatever they need when they need it, they could order quite literally a single can of Diet Coke, check out, and in our case, we charge $1, I think, for Diet Coke. That's all they pay. We would deliver it that day. And we started in New York about a year and a half ago, and we've grown very, very quickly. So now we're currently in 150,000 apartments, over 400 buildings, some of the most iconic ones in New York, and we're now also serving New Jersey. But I'll pause there. That was a lot.
No, I appreciate that. That's great. It's interesting. So I have a bunch of questions, but I'll start with, is it done through, do I go to the store and you're sort of a plug-in, or is it through your store that's attached to, fulfillment, whoever? Like, do I know where the Diet Coke's coming from, like you said?
Great question.
How does that all work?
So great question. It's actually also what helps make us unique. Unlike a traditional delivery service, maybe an Instacart, where, exactly to your point, you will buy a Diet Coke, but it'll be coming from a Whole Foods or which retailer it's coming from. We warehouse 80% of our own goods. So we will buy Diet Cokes from Coca-Cola Incorporated by the pallet. So I'm buying thousands of cases. I will warehouse them. And that is in part what allows me to serve residents in such a unit economic friendly way, because I'm making margin on the Diet Coke. I'm not paying retail and reselling it to you at a markup. I'm paying 40 cents for that can and selling it to you for $1. The remaining 20% of the inventory on our online store, again, which is white labeled for each building we serve, is reserved for local businesses, which we're proud of. So if Lee here, for instance, has a local flower shop, he's very good potentially at picking flowers, but not very good at building an online business and logistics business to sell those flowers. So we would say, hey, Lee, let us sell your flowers for you. So we would list them in a local business category. Residents across all 150,000 plus apartments that we serve whatever opportunity to buy these beautiful flowers, we send all those orders by a certain cutoff time to Lee's flower shop that morning. Then Lee knows to prepare all those orders. All Lee has to do is bring them to our fulfillment center, and then we will distribute them to all the residents across the 5 boroughs and New Jersey. We do that with florists, with cheese shops, with meat shops, with toy shops. So it allows us to offer our residents a very wide inventory of goods, while also supporting the local businesses who help, drive this economy in a meaningful way.
Interesting. And then as a building, do I have the ability to curate sort of the types of goods in that? And do I have and I guess the other part, do I have a relationship with the people that are delivering that? Like they're putting your hat on and coming. So, because I know one of the issues in multifamily that people have with Uber and some of the other ones is you increase convenience, but you also increase security risk by having, random people walking around a building. So does this give people maybe some of the peace of mind to know, okay, that risk is somewhat pushed away because they have a relationship with you?
So Lee, that's almost exactly a large part of our value prop that you just identified is exactly that. We use full-time employees. We come once a day. Those people have a relationship with the building and the building owner. So if you can imagine, if I'm serving a LaFrac building, LaFrac is a large developer. They've got, dozens of buildings. I will have a dedicated Avo rep assigned to that specific building of theirs. So it eliminates the exact challenges you just outlined, where you don't have a bunch of random people coming in and out of your building. You've got one Avo assigned full-time rep who comes once a day to your building. So it provides a safer, both safer on the not having a ton of random people coming to your building standpoint, and from a hygiene protocol COVID standpoint. Now you got one person delivering all these things to your building. That one person's a full-time employee who is mandated to follow very strict COVID hygiene protocols with our company, versus 50 random contractors who might not be as inclined to follow those strict protocols. And now you've got 50 random people in your building.
Yeah, no, and I like the idea too, just thinking if I'm multifamily and I'm looking at exercising space, like if I have vending machines or things like that, this is a great way maybe to maximize space and eliminate maybe some of that area to be utilized for something else. And, that flexibility that you have of being able to deliver those things. Now, question though for you on this side. So we're seeing some of the trends being that people are looking to bring those things into the unit from the flexibility standpoint of not wanting to have package rooms where they're overflowing with everything from Casper beds to, to everything that you can get now. So, which wasn't necessarily planned for when development of those sites were done, to now where people are saying, all right, just bring it to the unit, let me into the unit and do that. And then even in commercial buildings, that was a known thing called dark delivery before we used to do that, right? So that trend, how do you view that trend? And do you think that that's going to take off? It's a fad, you could see it maybe one day, but maybe not now. Like being the experts in the delivery side, I know from the lock side, how we view it, but from your side, how do you view it?
So it's interesting. It reminds me of a story. I was at Google Lee for 10 years before joining Avo, and a lot of my clients were large Fortune 500 companies, but one in particular was a fast-growing online retailer called Gilt. And those who live in New York might be familiar with Gilt. They grew very quickly, became a very, very large.
I remember. Yeah.
And the reason I bring up this example is because my team worked with them specifically on their mobile applications and how to market them. And they were proud and excited about this one feature. And this feature, where at first glance seemed, I guess, really cool, it would allow you to aim your camera at any color you saw, and it would then populate all of the inventory they had for sale that was the same color. So if you aimed your camera at literally an orange, it would show you all of the inventory they had for sale, all the clothing they had for sale is the same color orange. To me, this was a great example of like, maybe in theory that's interesting, but in practice, it's so overkill. And I bring that back to having people literally fill my fridge for me. In my opinion, do I think there's an opportunity, and do I think there's a market for people who want that? Yes. Do I think it's extraordinarily niche and candidly overkill? Yes. And I'll tell you why. All things considered, and this is something Avo is proud of, if I could deliver you everything you need, the only thing is I send you a text. At the end of the day, you got to come down and pick it up. It's refrigerated, kept cold, kept nice, and you could have all that for free. Or I would charge you an exorbitant fee to bring it up the elevator and stock your fridge with it. What we see 95% of the time, they'd rather waive the exorbitant fee and come down and get their stuff. So in short, do I think some people might find appealing the idea of effectively a stranger going into their house and stocking their fridge? Yeah, I just think it's extremely niche, and I don't think it'll become mainstream anytime soon.
Fair enough. How about the experience of getting into the building as a whole? Like, do you all engage with the access control systems that are letting you in, or is it because it's New York City and there's a person standing out front typically that can let you in? Like, how do you work in that regard?
Great question. And the answer is both ways. So some of our partners who have access control systems in place, we will either be given granted access. So for instance, for communities that don't have doormen or women, this allows us to access the building to drop off all of the deliveries. And again, worth noting, one thing that makes this unique is we get a certificate of insurance with the building. We're fully insured. So we've kind of become an extension of that building, in turn mitigating a lot of the risk a building might have by letting one of our full-time employees in their building to deliver these goods. So we have an understanding and a partnership. So we really become like an extension, like we're almost like a part of their staff. So in those cases, for buildings that do have access control systems in place, we effectively get access to those systems so we can deliver these things. And for a lot of buildings, they'll have doormen or women and they will just let us in because they know us, we have a relationship with them, and then we will drop off all those orders and then text the residents that their orders have arrived.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, three questions, and two of them were somewhat random, just curiosity questions for you. But I guess the first one is on the economic side of how this works. Is it a revenue opportunity for the building itself as well? So they get to share in that, and then because I understand the economic side of the transaction with you and the customer, but from a building standpoint, is this seen as a revenue opportunity?
So it varies. So traditionally, we charge an amenity fee just to include our service in your building.
Okay.
So that can range from $1 to $3 per unit per month. Because make no mistake about it, this is an amenity. This is effectively a personal shopper.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's free for a resident. Now, in some cases, depending on the size of our portfolio partner, especially here in New York, where some of these developers have portfolios, of tens of thousands of units, we will waive the fees entirely. And in some cases, when the partnership is particularly strategic, we will introduce a rev share. And I add a caveat, a very modest rev share, because
don't worry.
The margins in grocery, Lee, let me tell you, they're not great.
But I could see a volume side of things, right? Where
it's a very small percentage on the volume that allows them to benefit from the success of the amenity, but it's more a symbolic amount.
Yeah. I can see that, but that leads me also then from the curiosity standpoint, two things. It tells me that density is important when it comes to this, right? Because the repeat trips has got to be a killer from the logistics standpoint. So two parts. Number one, it reminds me a little bit like cloud kitchens in a way. So do you offer sort of the back end service? If I wanted to put a front end service, let's say in a market that you're I don't know, maybe I want to bundle it into something, but as a company that wants to go out, do you provide that sort of API services to your back end? And I can sort of it's almost like a Shopify-ish of grocery delivery. I don't know. I'm nibbling around something.
Yeah, I love where your head's at. Not entirely today. Now we'll white label it to an extent. So here's an example. A great partner we're piloting with right now is HQO, which they know all about the access world, right?
I know Chase and the team there. Yeah.
There you go. So wonderful partners. Now we are piloting with them right now where we can become an extension of their offering. It's a very logical fit, right? They're in the business of making a tenant experience as seamless as possible, whether that's getting access to your office or getting what you need delivered. So in that case, we can white label the Avo offering to be branded that building that they're serving or HQO. It will, though, at this stage, while live within their app, it when engaged, and you click on the Avo tile, it will open up kind of a, a browser within an app highlighting
deep link.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's currently where we're at there, but we do really believe in like the white label. Is our best case scenario is our partners get all the credit and we get none of it. Because in a way, we just want to be behind the scenes, enabling wonderful tenant and resident experiences and making sure our partners get the credit for introducing it. So that's kind of how we like to roll.
No, it makes total sense. I could see it. I mean, from living in the buildings and wanting that, needing it, to now where the on-demand economy is there, and that ability for the density side, and the amenity needs that are there make a ton of sense on that end. So I guess last one is, I mean, do you view this ever moving into like master plan communities? It reminds me also of like the farmers co-op in my neighborhood, to where we could do that. So I could see, just like in my neighborhood, I don't live in a master plan community, but it's a pretty tight knit community where I could see aggregation of that too. I mean, do you have visions of like, where does this end? Like, it's a good way.
It's a great question. And at this stage, and you touched on this in your comment earlier, aggregated demand is the name of the game. So whether it's a high-rise residential building, an office building, in Israel, we serve a lot of hospitals, right? A lot of people in a dense area that have needs that we can meet. That is our sweet spot. So master plan community, well, from an urban sprawl standpoint, might be spread out far. Remember, the wider your spread, the harder it is logistically to make that magic work. Like Stuytown's a great partner of ours. That's a very large community, right? So you got to get very creative with how you serve that. For those that are familiar listening, it's 110 buildings in smack dab in Manhattan, takes up like many acres. So the future is we make access easy for whatever you need across the country, provided you live in an area that's got high density. So am I going to be serving a farm anytime soon in middle America? Probably not. I'd love to, but our hope is to serve every single high rise and every single university, hospital across the country in the next 5 years.
Actually, you mentioned universities. That sounds like another place too where there's density. So fascinating. No, I appreciate this. I love this stuff. This is the great part about being able to do these types of things. You meet a new person, meet a new idea, a new thought. It just opens up. So thank you, Jonathan. If people want to find out more information, where's the best place to do that?
So funny enough, we're kind of, it sounds obnoxious to say out loud, kind of like an invite-only service right now. So we kind of tend to say,
very New York of you.
We'll find you. And I also say that as a way to defend the fact that our public-facing website is not very user-friendly. So
fair enough.
help@avonow.com, or you can email me personally. I always love hearing from potential partners at jp@avonow.com. And again, our website is avonow, avonow.com. And thank you again, Lee, for having me. And I hope everyone listening has a glorious day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's fascinating to hear what you all are doing. So thank you.
Anytime.